I was actually lucky enough to just get back from an early screening of the movie Abigail. It's the most recent vampire movie involving a 12-year-old ballerina vampire, and all I gotta say is, damn, that was fun. So Abigail is the most recent movie by Radio Silence. They're the guys responsible for Ready or Not, Scream 6, among other titles, so you kind of know the tone this movie's going to have. So in this movie, you have this group of 6 anonymous mercenaries. They're working together through this anonymous source. They have a contract to fulfill. And their goal is they're supposed to kidnap this 12-year-old, hold her for 24 hours and protect her. And if all goes well, they will get a ransom payment of $50 million and they'll all be off into the sunset. And as you can predict by the trailer, something's going to go terribly wrong. That's right.
What the fuck is that thing?
We kidnapped a fucking vampire. A ballerina vampire.
Some of the choices they choose to go for in this movie when it comes to the comedic timing of the movie, some of the choices they choose to go for with the vampires when it comes to their powers and weaknesses. There's definitely going to be some things in this movie that completely turn off a certain demographic of viewers, but to me, it pretty much all worked. What I really liked about the characters in this movie is when you start getting to know them all, they're all kind of equally pieces of shit. So you don't really like side with any of them too much, maybe besides Melissa Barrera, but I really think they do a good job of kind of making every character like a different personality. It's kind of like a Reservoir Dogs vibe. And whenever a movie can do that, I feel like it adds an additional layer kind of to the film where you kind of feel like whenever you're spending time with a particular character, there's a little bit of a different personality on screen. That's what this movie does well. And immediately getting into the movie, the first thing to hit on is the acting. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but I just wanted to hit on a couple of things that completely stood out to me. Right off the bat, the star of this movie is going to be Melissa Barrera, and she basically knocks it out of the park with this. I'm really glad she's getting work since the Scream dilemma that's going on, the fallout. And maybe she's choosing it was the right decision to leave because this movie as her first standalone project is a huge step. Most of the characters in this movie are kind of shitty people at heart, but she's kind of tasked at playing the caregiver, the one who relates to the little girl they're kidnapping. So she's really good at playing both sides of both the criminal and the caring person. And Dan Stevens also really sticks out in this. He's like the 1B to Melissa Barrera's 1A, and he just does a great job. He's kind of tasked at being this like over-the-top dick. He's like this ex-cop. He's the one who's really serious about getting the job done. I think he was basically perfectly cast for this role. I think his acting really hammers home the point that he's just completely ruthless. He does not care about anybody else. As long as he gets the job done, he will throw anybody under the bus, stab anybody in the back. I thought he was great. Absolutely ruthless character. But obviously the star we all have come to see, Abigail, played by Alyssa Weir, I think she completely steals the show in this. I think she is phenomenal as the young girl. And as I say in basically all my reviews involving children actors, whenever you have a kid acting, you very much run the risk, especially as the lead, of having an actor who cannot perform. It kind of undertones the entire movie, but I think she elevates this entire movie. I think she's basically very good at everything they're asking her to do. Because when I was watching this movie, I had a thought in my head, and I was kind of thinking about like the concept of Abigail, this movie playing out, and I really couldn't have envisioned any other person playing this role besides the little girl they chose to play it. And that's actually a very powerful thing, especially for a child actor. I think you can have such an iconic performance at such a young age. Absolutely great. I don't know how this movie struck the balance, but somehow they created her character through her acting and writing of creating this character who's like so adorable. Like you watch her, you feel bad for her. She's just like this cute little girl, but she's also a ruthless savage. Like you absolutely think this is a monster. Like do not trust that. I don't know. It's just one of those things when I was watching the movie where I was thinking about it. Like if you had somebody else play that character, you know, it was acted different, written different. I think this movie ends up completely different in the eyes of a lot of viewers, but since she was in it, I think it's going to be very memorable. And last but not least, just a little bit of a shout out. Rest in peace, Angus Cloud. He was really good in this movie for the limited time he was in. I wasn't too familiar with his work. I saw a handful of things, but I thought he was good in everything he was in. He always had a likable character in every movie. He seemed like audiences gravitated towards him. Pretty disappointed we'll never get to see him again in anything. I think this is a great project to go out on. His legacy will be remembered. Rest in peace. Now, when you get into the way this movie's made, I absolutely loved the cinematography of this movie. The way it looks, the way it's filmed, the lighting, the angles, how dark it is, the mansion they choose, all of it worked for me. And the music choice in this movie is actually pretty bold because the tone they're going for the movie as the trailer represents is kind of like an orchestra ballerina vibe. And I'm going to be one of the people who finds the creative choice to center a lot of the movie's themes and music around ballet to be highly effective. I thought it was like the perfect blend of like comedic timing and action. And something else I really liked about the visuals of this movie is I really like how dark and grimy it gets where people are like covered in blood. They're all sweaty. I really like the way they portrayed like violence in this movie, both practical and special effects. And specifically the thing that worked the most for me when it comes to the visuals in this movie, it dates all the way back to how cool the poster was for this movie, the trailer, is I really like the way they portrayed Abigail in this movie as like an innocent girl as well as a monster. When you see or hear that they're going to be doing a ballerina vampire movie about a little girl, it can lose you really quick. You can think it's like over the top, stupid, comedic. I know people who thought that of the trailer. but the way they chose to balance out Abigail was basically flawless to me. I had an absolute blast watching her dance around the halls, the way they incorporated ballet music, some of the creative choices they choose to go where she's having a ballet dance with like a headless corpse. And Abigail's costume design specifically, I feel like really elevated this movie because they somehow managed to maintain the innocence of a little girl because she's wearing a ballet dress, also displaying that she's a full-fledged monster because she's covered in blood, but most particularly, it's only around like the mouth area like she's been feeding, and I thought that was a really creative choice. And another positive to this movie, I feel like it's a balance that it strikes very well, is the comedic timing. I mean, whenever you have a horror comedy, it's very easy to go way over the top, ham it up with the comedy, take you out of the moment. There's definitely some comedic relief in this movie, but I definitely just think the horror still remains. I thought it was very funny. I mean, it wasn't laugh out loud funny, like it's like my stomach's aching or anything like that, but I mean, this movie's entire runtime, I feel like there's a joke every 3 to 5 minutes at least. I saw this movie in a packed theater and there was like almost continuous laughter. There was almost never any dead air. There was just people laughing throughout at little quips, little jokes. So yeah, me personally, I'm a fan of horror comedy. So whenever you can stick that blend for me, definitely a positive. And something I thought was very interesting about this movie is that the trailer is definitely very good for this movie. It kind of, hits the tone of what it's going to be, but there's definitely a lot more depth to this movie than the trailer would let on to. I thought there was a good amount of twists and story arcs to this movie. The movie keeps zigging and zagging, keeping you interested from scene to scene, so it's not getting repetitive at all. It has a couple of profound ideas it's going for in the dialogue they're talking about. And when you get to the central action of this movie, what most people are going to come to see, a vampire movie, it delivers in gallons, literally, of blood. Because to me, the kill scenes in this movie and the way they incorporate the action and violence, I thought was incredibly awesome. I thought it was super unique. Again, as I said earlier on, there are some creative choices in this movie that will turn some people off. To me, they really landed. I thought it was incredibly fresh because they chose to kind of go out there a little bit with some of the ideas. And as always, this is going to be spoiler free, but I thought it was really creative. The way they kind of make mentions in the dialogue to some characters you eventually get to meet and the way they tie it back to Abigail. I thought it was really fresh. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was just a good little twist I didn't see. This is going to be one of those movies I could definitely drone on and on about the things I liked about it, because there was so much to like. The cinematography of this movie, the set design, the character design, absolutely beautiful. I thought the movie was acted well. All the characters are diverse. I thought the creative choices were, as they are, incredibly creative. And obviously the memorable thing to this movie is going to be Abigail, her character design, how unique it is that there's a ballerina vampire, but also what's going to remain with me is the creative choices that the directors had, the balls to go for things. There's definitely not enough of those movies anymore that just go for it. They have an idea, they think it's creative, and they just stick it. And this movie does it. It ignores tropes. It goes for unique things I've never seen in vampire movies before. So for that, 2 thumbs up from me. So if you're looking for a vampire movie that looks good, it's violent as hell, there's comedy in it that lands, it's creative, go see Abigail because it's fucking awesome. As I sit here and I kind of think in my head of my favorite vampire movies that I really love. Obviously, I love The Lost Boys. I love the original Fright Night. I'm trying to think of what my top 3 would be, and Abigail might slide in there somewhere in the top 3. I liked it that much. So have you seen this movie? Comment down below. Let me know if you loved it as much as I did. And if you haven't seen this movie and have no plans on doing so, comment down below. Let me know what your favorite vampire movie is. Let me know if this cracks your top 3 or if it's even close. And as always, I'm going to put a link to my other 2024 reviews here. If you want to click on those, check some of those out. If you haven't subscribed already, what the hell are you waiting for? Let's do it. And that's all I got for this one, but maybe I'll do a spoiler review or something about this movie at some point because I loved it that much, but that's all I got in this one. Check that one out if I do make it. Peace.